have, we're here in Honolulu. We're not half a mile from Kakaako. Kakaako. Somebody make a song about that. They made a song about Waikiki. Waikiki, da 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 da. My favorite song. But they ought to make a song about Kakaako. Actually, the problem is it has too many Ks in it, you know.
Sounds like Oklahoma when you're singing it there.
And now Kerry Kakazu has too many Ks also.
Yeah. Blame my mother.
Kerry is a PhD in biochemistry, was it?
Plant physiology.
Plant physiology, same thing.
Yeah.
Okay, and he was at the medical school or the Cancer Research Center for a long time. Still there?
Yep.
And now he's given up all of that to be a kind of, I don't know if it's nonprofit. It is nonprofit.
Well, I'd like to make a profit, but
like to make a profit. LTMAP. LTMAP.
Yeah.
I like that. You heard it here on ThinkTech. And he's got this fabulous place on
Hawaii Street. Yeah.
Hawaii Street and Cook Street,
right.
in KSville over there, on the second floor, which is really a really interesting place. And just for background, I was there. We did an OC-16 movie there, when Kerry was just setting it up and showing me the technology, and you know, it looked like technology that wasn't quite connected yet, but there was some productivity going on. And the idea is MetroGrow is to grow leafy vegetables, I guess, indoors using high-tech techniques.
Correct.
Which was what your training really was all pointing to when you went to school. So since then, I haven't seen you. That was probably a year and a half ago, I'm going to say.
Yeah, a little over a year, I think.
A little over a year. Since then, you kept at it. In fact, sounds like you got even more focused on it. And you had an open house in June, which I'm sorry I missed. So let's start by telling us about the open house. Why and what happened?
Okay. Well, I had been about after you left, I started selling to the restaurants about September of last year. Just things that were easy to produce and that I kind of knew the production schedule for. So the idea with the open house was to try and get more restaurants interested and hopefully more people on board, and generate more revenue to get towards making a profit, right?
Yeah.
So I invited restaurateurs and some of the media, yourself, and Frolic Hawaii came down and actually covered some of it, and I got a little spot on the KHON Morning News, so that was helpful. So just trying to get more interest going.
Yeah. So what are you actually growing?
So the main crops are lettuces, which obviously are pretty easy to grow hydroponically.
A number of varieties.
Yeah, it was primarily one butter lettuce variety called Salanova.
Wait, and you brought me something in a paper bag.
Yeah.
I think it's only fair that we identify this.
Sure.
And unfortunately, Kerry did not bring me any salad dressing.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we'd be tearing into this thing right now.
It tastes great without dressing.
Okay, it's got its dressing inside. Okay, now this is oh, that looks good. It's moist and soft and crisp all at the same time. Okay, what is this? I'm holding it up. Go ahead.
Grab one out of
Demonstrate
here.
it.
So this is again, this is a variety of butter lettuce called Salanova, and this is a little older head, but so I usually sell it a little bit smaller than this, but this is the green Salanova. So it's a butter lettuce, a little bit smaller leaves than the typical butter lettuce, and then I usually sell it with this little root plug on it already, so that keeps a little longer too.
Okay.
As long as you wrap it up.
Now, I want to point out to our viewers that you know, we're high tech here at ThinkTech, and we have a green screen. When I point there, that's all green. So we can play, if you look on the monitor, you'll see it's a picture of the city. It's an appropriate picture. And when we take something green, okay, like lettuce, it's affected by what they call the chroma key.
Yeah.
And instead of looking green, the lettuce looks brown. But I want everybody to be comforted by the fact it's not brown, it's green, it's brilliant green, okay?
Okay.
I'm glad we had this experience together, Kerry.
Now we know. So I'll have to grow blue lettuce or something like this next.
Yeah. Oh, hey, why don't we go back to the green screen, and then you can see the proper color of the lettuce. How's that? Okay. So we just. Okay, putting that aside. Putting that aside. Now we've been fully. And being fully informed, by the way, I should mention that we have a Twitter handle, and we're open for Twitter. You're open for business, we're open for Twitter.
Okay.
And our Twitter handle is ThinkTech HI, you see it on the screen. So if anybody wants to make a comment or make a question to you and find out your secret techniques, they can ask.
Sure.
And you can decide whether to answer them or not.
Yeah.
Okay, so this
yeah.
is one kind of lettuce.
Right.
that you're doing.
So I've actually just started testing out some new varieties. One of the restaurants in town asked me to see if I could grow a specific, they wanted a certain shape and size. So that's a nice thing with a small indoor farm, as I can be fairly flexible, and you know, I don't have to prepare a big plot of land. I can just have a few containers of hydroponics going and test out these different varieties. So that's what I'm currently testing, different kind of iceberg lettuce, a couple of what the escarole or chicory varieties. So various leafy greens. I also just started planting some spinach.
It's good for you.
Yeah, and locally, I guess we can get some of the New Zealand spinach and Malabar, which aren't quite the true spinaches. So I'm trying the real true spinach that usually you see as a baby leaf. But it's pretty hard to find locally. So again, something that being indoors in a cooler environment should be able to produce.
Well, these are unique, not unique, but they're exotic.
Yeah,
lettuces.
I think that's kind of the niche I've been sort of aiming for as I've developed this. It's going to be hard and tough to compete with the outdoor farms for the commodity type crops. But some of the specialty crops, I think, is the way to go.
Yeah, so that's a great idea. And that means you'll always have an advantage on the outdoor farms as long as you keep ahead of them. I mean, if they decide to grow some of these exotic lettuces, that's going to hurt you, but
Yeah.
why can't they do that?
Again, for the ones that I'm trying to focus on would be the cooler weather crops.
It's a temperature thing.
Yeah, so temperature. So I'm indoors, I can kind of control it. I have air conditioning available.
That's interesting. You can emulate any environment you like.
Yeah, that's what they call it, controlled environment agriculture, CEA is the acronym.
So you always, because they'll never be able to air condition.
Right, right.
So you can do this. You can grow, and you can grow faster too.
Yeah, theoretically, I do this thing called aeroponics, we talked about last time, where the roots are misted from underneath with spray nozzles. And so those nozzles help usually the roots develop a lot faster and absorb nutrients faster. So I can cut down typical lettuce cycle maybe about a week to 10 days. Yeah.
How about for this?
So this is usually gets to this size in about 40 days. Typically a lettuce like that would be 50 days, maybe 45 to 50 days.
Yeah. That's pretty good.
Uh-huh.
This is from your MetroGrow,
Yeah,
right?
so
Right there
that's
in
how they grow
Kakaako.
right on those systems under the LED lights.
Yeah. What kind of dressing is good with that? I think I take the Caesar salad
Yeah,
dressing.
yeah, it's good.
Okay, so that, that's pretty good what's happened here. And you're now in production, I would say.
Yeah.
You have regular crop cycles
Right.
and all that.
So yeah, the first year when you came to visit was really getting the technology down and trying to figure out, and that's actually probably the most difficult technical part, is saying, okay, I need to plant on this day and harvest on this day, and I can kind of time that out. And this density to make sure I have enough room for the lettuce to grow, but not too much that I'm wasting space. So all those kind of things have to be worked out. So the lettuce is a good production cycle. And then the microgreens, which is my other primary crop, has been pretty steady.
What's a
too.
microgreen?
Microgreen is usually a plant that's grown to the first true seed or true leaf stage. So you might see one or two leaves on this plant. They're a little bit bigger than sprouts, and they have the same flavor profile as the larger crop, but sometimes even more intense because it's smaller and younger. So the restaurants like to use that for garnishes on their plates.
Parsley.
Parsley would be an example you can grow but instead of just cutting off little leaves, they can just take the whole seedling.
Easy to grow.
Easy to grow, yeah, faster. Typical cycle for that is 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah. So what's the difference between the misty kind, what is it?
Aeroponics.
Aeroponics and hydroponics.
So hydroponics just means growing without
I hope
soil.
you're making notes about this. This is very important if you want to do what he's doing, and
Yeah.
we want you to do what he's doing. Go ahead.
So hydroponics just means growing without soil. So typically, in those situations, the plants are sitting in water, some sort of solution. There's a number of techniques. There's an ebb and flow, in which you usually have some kind of gravel bed, and the water goes up and down, but it's typically just sitting in the water for most of the time. And then the other one is NFT, nutrient flow technology, or film technology, excuse me, in which the roots kind of sit on the bottom of a channel and then water sort of flows past. So that's another one. What's popular in Japan for lettuces is a shallow raft technology in which they float lettuce plastic panels on top of water in ponds, and the roots just hang down in the water.
They go through the plastic panel, little
yeah.
holes in the
Right.
plastic panel.
So that's a very popular method, especially for lettuce, which is very tolerant of being submerged most of the time. So all those work really well. I was trying to avoid that to just the amount of water that would be on the second floor building, and just to conserve water. And also, there's a lot of research that suggests that the aeroponics, because of the additional oxygen, helps the plants to grow faster.
Ah, and get crunchier.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, fresher, it's a fresh feeling.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So you have to make a decision in each case about what technique you're going to use.
Correct, yeah.
So what are the factors that go into that decision?
I just really right now, I just sort of trial and error.
Trial and error.
Yeah. Some of my plants I can look up and research and see that, some people have tried to grow it in different ways. For example, the lettuce has been tested in all kinds of different systems. And actually, the shallow raft system in some research shows some of the best productivity.
Yeah.
But again, just the amount of water involved just was a little bit too cumbersome for
You
me.
got to change the water?
Yeah, so I try to circulate it. Some people who have really worked this to a fine science, they can spray just enough water so there's virtually nothing left. And then, so whatever little that they collect, they just throw away, and then you have the freshest solution all the time. I do a sort of semi-recirculating, so I'll let it circulate and go back to the plants. And they typically use up what I have in the container in about 2 to 3 days, and then I refill it. So it's sort of semi-recirculating.
So what about this recirculation thing? I mean, do you need to recirculate it, or could you conceivably just use it until it's all used?
Yeah, well, when we say recirculation, it takes out some nutrients and you're just putting it back. So it is decreasing in nutrition at some point, but lettuce doesn't
Nutrients
use a
in
lot.
the water.
Yeah.
Are you loading the water with nutrients?
It's some hydroponic fertilizer. So the other big advantage of doing this aeroponically or hydroponically is because there's not any runoff or binding by the soil, you can actually put a lot less fertilizer than you would on a typical field. So in that way, it's a little bit more sustainable. It is still chemical fertilizers, but I use a lot less.
Yeah, like you keep saying I, it's
Yeah.
first person. What about the staff of 50 people that you have over there?
Yeah, that will come when I start making a profit, actually. So right now it's a one-man show.
I don't remember the acronym, but that's Kerry Kakazu MetroGrow. It's a corporation that wants to make a profit.
Yeah.
We're going to take a break. We come back, we're going to talk about light, because light is very important in this deal. We talked about water, now we're going to talk about light after this break.
Hi, I'm Donna Blanchard. I'm the host of Center Stage here on ThinkTech Hawaii. Center Stage airs every Wednesday at 2 o'clock, and of course you can check out our archives on YouTube or on ThinkTech Hawaii anytime you like. Why should you do that? Because this is an arts show that I believe is making a difference in lives. We talk with artists of various ilk. We talk with painters and writers, playwrights, novelists, poets, sculptors, dancers, you name it, directors, actors, of course. And we don't only talk about what people do, but we talk about how they do it. And my favorite part of the conversation, we talk about why they do it. And it's really common on this show to hear people say, wow, I didn't think about it that way. And it's very common to hear people afterwards who have seen the show say the same thing. And I hear all the time that people are inspired by the conversations that we have. So why don't you join us and be inspired too? That's Center Stage on Wednesdays at 2 o'clock. We'll see you Center Stage.
Okay, I've always hoped that we could get into a new technology here. We got video, we got audio. I think get olfactory technology. Because if we had that, Kerry, you could smell this wonderful smell. I'm telling you. You know the smell.
Yes.
You want to try it?
Oh, I've had it many times.
Okay.
I'll save it for you.
I think I know why you do this. It's for the smell.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful smell, boy. This is, it's the smell of freshness is what it is, and crispness. So anyway, the one point left on water that I think we should cover is the fish tank type apparatus that you're looking at. What is that?
So it's a company called IDEC. They're actually a Japanese company that do a lot of automation of like control systems, et cetera. But one of their technologies is this thing that generates what they call nanobubbles. So these are very, very small air bubbles that are generated by some high pressure stream. I don't know all the physics of it. But the bubbles are so small that they just stay in the water for the longest time. So unlike a typical air stone, which the bubbles just dissipate, these bubbles are present in the water for a really long time. So the water stays oxygenated very highly. And so they've actually done some trials with lettuce growing in these rafts and showed like about a 20% increase in fresh weight. Yeah.
Really?
So they actually have been helping me with some of the LED lights. We're talking about lights, I guess. They also produce LEDs. So when they found what I was doing, they mentioned about maybe I could test out some of their nanobubblers. So hopefully I'll do that soon.
Definitely. I mean, if it's going to give you an advantage.
Yeah.
I mean, the idea is that if it helps you in 20% of production, either in speed or size, what have you, either way or both, that is going to make more money. I mean, or lose less money, as the case may be.
Correct.
So that's something you ought to experiment with.
Yeah.
You know, what strikes me, and it struck me the same way a year and a half ago, is that there's no real guide on this. You have to do research on it. You have to look at everything you can find to see what other people are doing, and only then can you find an experimental model that's likely to work. At the end of the day, it's your own experience that counts.
Mostly at this point, again, I think I mentioned Japan is a country that does a lot of this kind of research. Singapore, we talked about last time, does a lot of this kind of growing. The Netherlands is another one with the backing of Philips LEDs and lighting. So they do a lot of research. So I get some of that from there, but it's still a very new science for sure.
Yeah. And then you have to make it work with the resources, including money that's available to you. You can't buy the best of the best. That's not going to work.
Right.
And you have to buy what's available, and it can't come from too far away and all that.
Yeah.
So, but let's talk about a light. And it's funny that you should mention Singapore. That's exactly what I was thinking of. In Singapore, they had a whole building where the plants were growing in these vertical sheets with holes in them along the wall, and the wall was actually glass, and the whole building is a spiral going up, and they're sucking up all the sunshine. And I don't know whether it's hydroponics or what's the other one? Aeroponics. But it was some way of watering them while they were in this vertical sheet, this growing medium. So let's talk about the light you're using.
So that was, I think, in the Singapore example you mentioned, they primarily using still sunlight, which of course is the cheapest. But many of the vertical farms in Japan and in the mainland US are starting to move towards indoor lighting just because of the element of control again. It's controlled environment agriculture. So by using artificial lights or electric lights, you can control exactly how much light is being given. And one of the things that made me think this might become viable economically was the LED lights starting to come out and being a lot more energy efficient. And we compare, for example, the typical grow light for a plant used to be about 1,000 watts. And now with the LEDs, the first generation that came out, you get it down to about 3 something. So it's a big reduction.
And 1,000 watts takes more
electricity,
energy.
yeah. So the
and
cost.
You have to have a bigger electrical system to support it, and you could have circuit breaker issues and all that using a lot of 1,000
And then
watt
the
bulbs.
heat was a really big issue too. All the heat that was generated by those
Is that bad? Is heat bad for plants?
Yeah, I mean, you want to keep, again, especially in my situation, I'm kind of keeping it cool if possible. So that was a really big issue. Yeah. So the amount of heat that those 1,000 watt lamps give off, obviously, is pretty stressful on the plants.
Yeah. Just a footnote to all of this is that what you're doing, I mean, it may or may not be profitable right now, but as time goes by, this could save our bacon. I don't mean that literally.
Yeah.
This could save the island. We could generate food that would feed the public even when food from elsewhere, or even food, regular agriculture, was too expensive or somehow not available.
Right.
This could be, and it goes to the question, I don't want to change the subject too much, about aquaponics. You're not using aquaponics. You've made a choice about that. You don't want to fool with tilapia? You don't like tilapia? You don't like the taste? What is it?
Well, it's not so much the taste. it was just, you know, it's a nice system, it's very sustainable. It just was another element of complication for what I was trying to do. And I'm a plant physiologist, not an animal physiologist.
Yeah.
So I kind of made the conscious decision to stay a little bit more focused and just work on the plants first. And it's not to say that at some point, you know, I could incorporate the aquaponics. It's probably pretty easy to do. But it just seemed to be another variable that would make it a little bit harder to experiment, take longer to develop.
Yeah, the complexity is
Yeah.
clearly more. much
And
more
the cost,
complex.
I mean, obviously, you know, you think, well, you got free fertilizer from the fish, but you have to feed the fish. So that, you know, adds another cost there. So fish feed and maintaining those elements were pretty complicated, I thought.
Yeah, and more difficult to market because although you're getting more money for the protein for sure,
Yeah.
It's complex to market it.
Yeah.
You have to find the right channels to market it.
Yeah, and then, yeah, exactly. And there's a number of aquaponic farms that's trying to start up in Oahu, so that would be competition too. So.
Right, right.
And there, indoor would be no advantage at all, so.
Right. Well, I mean, I find there's a great similarity what you do to what aquaponics does. I mean, it's pretty much a self-contained type of system, and you can do it in. You have what? My recollection is 500 or 600 feet, something like that.
Yeah, well, the growing area is about 500 to 600 square feet.
Okay, gee, I was close. And that means that you could package a system for me in my condo, which would actually, you know, put Caesar salad on the table every day, right? Because I could grow it fast enough using a small footprint to grow this stuff. All I need to do is get the water and the light together in some kind of medium situation, and presto, I have this beautiful lettuce all day long.
So there's a company, well, a system called AeroGarden that looks similar to what I'm doing, but it's more a drip irrigation system. So there are a number of people that are trying to come up with home units. Again, the Japanese, even companies like Panasonic, big companies like that, have started to market some home units. And some of these are small, like the one you mentioned just on your countertop. Some are a little bit more elaborate, like a little home wine refrigerator size. Some are even big, like full-size refrigerators. So there's a variety of things that can be done.
Yeah, we had somebody on the show who had a kind of tower affair. It's
Oh,
about
right,
6
right,
feet high, and there are little holes for the plants. You stick the holes in, and it has a drip thing.
Right.
Comes down from the top, and it just recycles the water. And the growing cycle was very fast with that. And with one or two of these little towers, you could feed your family all the greens they wanted.
Yeah, so that's very similar.
Yeah. But you're not making a system yet, anyway.
Yeah, not yet. Again, I'm trying to focus right now on mostly the restaurant sales. Again, it does cost more to produce this way right now, especially at the small scale that I'm at. So I kind of need to get the profit margins from those sales. But you know, a lot of people have moved over to selling the equipment because I think there is actually maybe good potential to make some money if you can market it correctly. But I don't have right now the staff.
No, not in 400 or 500 feet. You got to focus is everything, not to be distracted.
But as systems get developed and you know, proven more, I think then you could look at potentially selling the hardware too.
So, do you go home? Or do you like to stay with the plant?
No, I mean, it's a 7-day day a week job right now, but at least it's flexible. You know, the plants are not quite as on a feeding schedule like a baby, so you know, they can be fed in the afternoon or the evening or the morning, so that's the nice thing. Yeah,
Do they make little sounds to Daddy?
If I start hearing those, I'd be a little worried, but not yet.
I'd be worried too. But listen, when it happens, give me a call.
Okay, sure. You'll be
Come
the
down
first to
again.
know, yeah, okay.
I'll take a microphone. You know, a little shop of horrors, that kind of thing.
If I start calling it Audrey, I guess.
Audrey, right. So, okay, so now you have these plants and they're on a regular cycle, and you've gotten these lights to where LED lights, and you got the waters passing through, and you have the stock. You're not growing them from seeds or anything.
Oh, it is from seed.
It is from seeds.
Yeah.
Oh, let's stop and talk about the
Okay.
seed. I thought it was you could take a little piece of the lettuce off and start it again. No.
No, lettuce would be pretty tough to grow that way. Most of the really leafy vegetables generally don't respond well to being by cuttings or transplants.
Okay.
I do from seed.
Where do you get the seeds from?
There's a bunch of commercial seed companies, and this one called Johnny Seeds, pretty well known to most of the farming community. They supply it. They're based actually in Maine, but
I thought
it's
they were
amazing.
limited to apple seeds.
Yeah.
Joke.
But no, they're very good. They have a good variety of seeds and amazing shipping. I mean, I'll order something on Monday and sometimes get it by Wednesday. So
Yeah,
it's
and it's
incredible.
not heavy.
No, yeah, that's maybe why it's so fast.
Yeah. So you take the seeds, and what do they look like, apple seeds?
Some of them do. Every seed's a little bit different. The lettuce seeds, actually, these lettuce are very nice. They actually do a process called pelleting. So lettuce seeds are pretty tiny, maybe like less than a grain of rice, actually.
Yeah.
And so what they do is they actually encase it in some clay.
Nutrients, yeah.
Yeah, so a little clay pellet. And so you just drop these pellets, which are like a BB, and I put them in these little rooting plugs. And that's how I start them. So it's actually easy to plant that way.
But
So
you have to go through 2 steps, though.
Yeah.
You have to start them in this rooting plug.
Right.
And then when they reach a certain
Yeah,
height,
then I move them
put them
over.
into the final growing
Yeah,
environment.
and actually, that's the interesting part of it is, I thought, okay, I'll just put these things in, let it grow to 40 days, and that's it. But because they start off so small, the amount of space I'd be wasting doing that would be quite a bit. And obviously, the thing to make money here is time, weight, and space. So what I do is I start these plugs in a 12 by 18 sheet, and I can fit 35 of these plugs in that sheet. And then after about 2 to 3 weeks, then they're big enough, I can transplant them, and then I space them out to 6 per 12 by 18 sheet, where they grow to full size. So for the first 2 or 3 weeks of their life, I can grow 35 lettuce in a space of 1.5 feet square.
That's
Yeah.
very efficient.
Right.
So what can you do? What are you doing to increase the growing speed and efficiency, make this 400 or 500 feet area really sing?
Yeah, so they call this kind of farming vertical farming. So going up and in racks is one of the things. And so the picture you
saw
saw
those
earlier,
racks, yeah.
was just one level. Right now, I can get 2 levels of that size lettuce going. And of course, if I had a taller warehouse and you pay by the square foot, then you could go even higher. I think you mentioned you saw this tall racks in Singapore.
Was
Yeah.
like a building already. Yeah.
I was just looking today, actually, they're building what's supposed to be the country's biggest vertical farm in New Jersey, 69,000 square feet. And the picture rendering they showed had the lettuce stacks of about 14 high. It's a giant warehouse. So that's one of the ways you maximize the space is by going vertical.
Are you going to wind up doing that? I mean, let's assume, I want to talk about the market after the next break, but let's assume that you can sell as much as you can produce. What would be the plan at that point?
Yeah, so actually right now that I've kind of established this, and I think what I've learned is I do need a certain scale to be profitable, and it's probably a little bit bigger than 500 square feet. And so I think the next step would be to increase about double in size would be sufficient to make a profit. But if it became to a point where, some client, Whole Foods came in and said, I want to buy, 1,000 lettuce a week or something like that, then yeah, you'd have to get some kind of this warehouse situation.
You hear that, Whole Foods? Hear that? Okay, so, what's interesting too is that as and when you decided you had to go to 69,000 square feet, it's not like you have fixed improvements in the space. You have these tables and racks.
Yeah.
You have water connections, no
Right.
big deal. You have air conditioning, no big deal. I mean, nothing unusual there. I mean, it's not like you're building fixtures that are hard to remove or hard to install. You can set up pretty much anywhere.
Yeah, and that's kind of one of the nice things that came about is they don't have to be custom built spaces. They probably take a little bit more electrical than a typical office building, for example, but nothing out of the ordinary.
No more than a video
And,
studio, I'm sure.
Yeah, probably. And this farm that I just mentioned in New Jersey, Aero Farms is the company. It's a converted steel mill. So, they're repurposing buildings. And that seems to be the trend on the mainland US, is that they're looking at these abandoned buildings that are just not being used for what they originally were. In Japan, I think I remember reading, they converted an old IC, integrated circuit facility. And since it was already very clean, the plants are pristine.
You could go anywhere.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to take another break. When we come back, we're going to get into exactly what the market is like. We're going to see if there's any resistance when I ask him the questions. That's Kerry Kakazu. He's MetroGrow. This is MetroGrow second episode. We'll be right back after this short break.
Aloha, I'm Keli'i Akina, president of the Grassroot Institute and host on Kakaako, a weekly program on the ThinkTech Hawaii broadcast network. Kakaako means let's work together. Think of the sad alternative, let's not work together. Here in Hawaii, with all of our diversity and the richness of the people, it's important for us to come together around issues on the basis of what's right and what's good and what's going to serve the common good. And that's what we try to do at Kakaako. Every week, we interview movers and shakers, people in government, business, and other sectors of society to talk about how to create together a better government, economy, a better world here in Hawaii that can bless the rest of the world. I thank you for your attention to ThinkTech Hawaii, and we look forward to seeing you every Monday, 2 to 3 p.m. on the ThinkTech Hawaii Broadcast Network. We're Kakaako, and we wish you well. Aloha.
Okay, we're back. We're live. We're here with Kerry. We're talking science. We're talking science that could affect you. So in this last part of the show, I like to talk about the market as it exists and as you see it evolving. I look about the nutritional value and where this kind of nutrition fits in our future sustainability at a time when maybe food gets more expensive and hard to get. Okay, first, what's the market like today?
So again, in my situation, small scale, very controlled environment, costs are a little high. So currently, it's really the high-end market. It's the restaurants, gourmet markets. The other thing is because of the local food movement, people are very interested in getting food that hasn't traveled across the country. And so being in Kakaako, I used to sell to Vino when they were open. They should be coming back. It's 2 blocks away, so that's about as close as you're going to get to a farm. So that's the other appeal of this kind of growing, and I think that will continue. It's probably as local as you're going to get. I think if you grow larger, or if I can get a larger facility, then you can start looking at producing a little bit more commodity level. But I don't think at the current state, it's going to replace, like you couldn't grow corn or wheat or any of those kinds of commodities in this kind of system. So
in the next phase, do you see a single bigger establishment for MetroGrow, or do you see lots of little ones? In other words, so you get some young fella or girl who wants to take care of one facility, say 400 or 500 feet in Waipahu, to handle the restaurants in Waipahu. You get another one in, I don't know, in Aina Haina. In other words, you have these little footprints all over the place, distributed MetroGrows. Or would you have one great big one at a place maybe where the rent was cheaper, and you would distribute out from one?
Yeah, that actually is a question that I've been thinking about a lot recently as I figure out how to scale this up. And obviously, efficiency-wise, a larger facility, and as I said, on the mainland, they're kind of moving in that direction. Yeah, economies of scale. Again, if the market is there, and I think some of these mainland firms, another big one is in Chicago. So they're going to produce their lettuce. They're not going to just sell it in Chicago. They can ship it out by truck to surrounding areas fairly easily. In Hawaii, the market's a lot smaller. So I think it'll be more difficult to get something too large.
You're not going to sell on the mainland.
Yeah,
but you could open a MetroGrow on the mainland.
Yeah, that's a possibility.
I hope you still talk to me then.
Sure, of course.
So, okay, so now, right now you mentioned Whole Foods, and I guess Whole Foods be the kind of food store that you'd be, because it's high end and it's expensive, and the customers can bear the price of this relatively exotic produce.
And higher quality.
Higher quality.
I would argue, yeah.
Okay, so, but in an ordinary, ordinary food setting, food store setting, that's the competition would be pretty stiff.
Yeah, well, even Foodland is very much into local produce, and Mari's Gardens is growing aquaponically, and they sell to Foodland. So I think there's, again, as the awareness for this kind of crop goes up, that people are interested in seeing something local, something grown a little bit more sustainably, without impacting the land too much. I think there's still a market for that, even in other supermarkets besides Whole Foods.
Yeah.
But again, the scale, I think, is going to be a lot smaller than the mainland. So I would kind of lean towards your distributed idea, to be close to the restaurants, close to the communities that you're going to serve, and sort of focus on that local part.
Yeah, but you want to have a vertical integration with the dressing.
Yeah.
No.
Value added, that's what everybody tells me. Yeah.
Kerry Kakazu dressing, you know.
Actually, that's what everybody keeps telling me. You gotta have value added products. So actually, I have a pesto recipe I'm working on. So.
That's exactly.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, diet. I mean, I told you in the break about this woman we talked to last week. Her name was Van Enneman. That's a Dutch name. And she's at USC doing research on cows and how you use Mendelian breeding techniques to make a cow that is resistant to disease and so forth. In the thought that, cows are still relevant in our diet. People love hamburger and whatnot. And, for the moment, I think that'll continue. That's what she thought, and that you needed to have a rounded diet with, meat protein in it somewhere. But as time goes by, meat protein gets more expensive, and the carbon footprint is always going to be pretty heavy. We could find a time when vegetables are all important. And it could be that this kind of growing technique could solve the problem of food, especially in an island state, where you can grow local, quality stuff, and distribute it, and avoid the carbon footprint of moving it around. Would you see this as a potential track for MetroGrow?
Again, yeah, it'd be tough on the protein side with leafy greens. You obviously need lots of vegetables. You need the nutrients in them, but they're not going to be calorie providing. As
the dressing.
The dressing, there you go. Yeah, and the croutons and everything you put on there.
If you have all those things, all with the name MetroGrow all over them, you have a complete diet.
Yeah, if I could just get that crouton tree to start growing, then that would be okay. But yeah, I think
you heard it here.
I think it'd be tough. Again, grains and those kinds of things are just not really meant for hydroponic type growing. But as land gets more scarce, as water gets more scarce, these are all things that hydroponic growing really helps conserve. By taking that burden away from the traditional farm, we can still grow those things and have the land available, and maybe focus on the fresh vegetables and produce in a more controlled environment situation. So I think there's always going to be some kind of a supplementary.
One of the really unfortunate things is that our attempts at returning to conventional diversified agriculture, in my view anyway, have not been successful. And you don't have a flood of graduates out of Sitar at the university, going out to establish farm. You don't have that. And a lot of land that could be used in diversified agriculture in Hawaii is fallow. And I don't think that's necessarily the market. It's just nobody wants to get his hands dirty. Or nobody feels confident they'll be able to, or getting the land in the first place.
I think so. I think that's the most important one. I think, people are getting more interested in, and there's some programs at the university of training new farmers in traditional farming. And it's definitely hard work. And even in my situation, this kind of growing, it's pretty tough to make a profit, because in reality, vegetables are fairly cheap. When you get right down to it, for the amount of work that you put in to grow it, either conventionally or hydroponically, there's not a huge profit margin in it. And as you mentioned, I think the infrastructure costs are probably the biggest hurdle to getting in. The land to start up, and then the equipment, the irrigation, those I think are the big factors.
And labor.
Yeah, and labor, obviously always the biggest cost.
And bureaucracy.
True.
No, really, MetroGrow doesn't have a whole lot of bureaucratic implications.
Yeah, well, that's what I've been reading on the mainland, and it's true here, is it's so new and so different that it's sort of been just flying under the radar, this kind of growing, and nobody knows quite how to zone it. So I'm in an industrial area. I did check with ACDA first, and they said, it looks okay. But it's, not something that's on radar right now. But for the traditional farms, there's still a lot of bureaucracy. But again, I think there's a little bit more recognition. The project out at Whitmore Village, where they're trying to establish that ag park, I think is a good step forward. And trying to see if you can get some of these hurdles overcome.
Yeah, we have to do local agriculture, which brings me to my last question. And that is, you talk about lettuce mostly, or those small
microgreens.
Right. But what about other fruits and other vegetables?
Actually, the big one, and I'm very interested, and I've talked to a few people, I just haven't got started yet, is strawberries. It's a crop that people are trying to grow hydroponically, and that's obviously pretty high margin, and something that can only grow in limited areas in Hawaii because of the weather. So I think that would be a really interesting one to try in an indoor system.
Yeah. Well, that'll be the next step. When you get a
Yeah.
little more space,
Yeah.
you can try other things that are also high profit margin and enhance, the table, so to speak.
Right.
So when you go home at night, Kerry, you go home hungry?
Well, I'm always
Or
bringing
you-
lettuce home now, yeah. So I always have something to eat, that's for sure.
Well, I'm going to take this home.
Great.
My wife and I are going to enjoy it tonight, I
Good.
promise you. Thank you so much for coming
Thank
down
you.
for episode number 2
Yeah.
on MetroGrow.
All right.
We'll see you for 3. You'll
All right.
see.
Thank you.